would come to this pass.
Yeah.
There's been, 2,000 years of struggle to create true democracy, and we get to that point, and then we just throw it all away. And devolve everything upon the state and upon big business and upon industry and upon the military powers that be, and become incapable of thinking independently or acting independently. And you're right. I mean, consciousness is at the heart of this. Consciousness is what it is fundamentally what it is to be human. It's the most precious gift of our humanity. Is this incredible miracle that we call consciousness, because no scientist today can actually tell us how this few pounds of jelly inside our skulls that we call our brains, how that transmutes into feelings, into emotions, into the appreciation of beauty and love, into our reactions to a beautiful sonata or symphony, in our reactions to a glorious sunset. This cannot be explained in purely physical and material terms, which is the only way that science operates. And although, science has certain prejudices about consciousness, this is why most scientists don't believe in life after death, for example.
Right.
Because their view is that consciousness is just like an accidental byproduct of physical activities in the brain. And therefore they believe that when the brain dies, consciousness also dies. And that view is spread very widely in our society as though it were a fact, but it's not a fact. It's an opinion, and there's a huge amount of contrary evidence to this, and that's why I do explore a near-death experience of Leone, my modern character at the beginning of the novel, and it becomes clear that the brain does not generate consciousness. The brain may well be a receiver or a transceiver of consciousness, rather like the relationship between a TV set and a TV signal. So if you break the TV set, you don't break the signal. The signal continues. And that's what I believe consciousness is. And it's why I use altered states of consciousness in the novel as the mechanism by which the two young heroines are able to move back and forward in time. Once we leave the confines of the material body, we are able to travel effortlessly throughout the universe and throughout time itself.
Well, so many people have had that experience naturally, and near-death experiences. I've had, Daniel Brinkley and a lot of others who have had that kind of experience or out-of-body. I myself have had numerous experiences in my early years on LSD and mushrooms and psilocybin and various cacti. And I can tell you for a fact that this is not the only world there is.
Yeah, absolutely, and me too. And you mentioned my last nonfiction book, Supernatural, and it was really while I was researching that I entered on the path that has now led me to write this novel. Because when I was researching Supernatural, which is about shamanism and altered states of consciousness, I've always felt as an author that it's important to put myself into the story I'm writing. And in order to research that subject properly, I went down to the Amazon, and I sat with shamans in the Amazon, and I drank with them the powerful visionary brew that they call ayahuasca, the vine of souls, of which the active ingredient is dimethyltryptamine, DMT, a most interesting substance, which is in fact produced in the pineal gland in the human brain, and is also present in many plants and animal species all around the world. And we don't know, there's no scientific explanation for what the function of DMT is, but I believe that what it does is it shifts the receiver wavelength of the brain and allows us to gain direct access to other levels of reality. Normally in our society, we're so focused and blocked in on the material world and on the cares and concerns of everyday life and on all these messages to make us passive producers and consumers of material goods, that we live in an illusion that that's all there is. And when people tell me that's all there is, there's just the material world and nothing more, I feel like I'm talking to somebody who's out on a dark, foggy night with a tiny little torch, shining the torch into the darkness and imagining that the little bit that they can see with the torch is all there is.
Right.
And forgetting all the rest of it that lies outside. So I believe altered states of consciousness are extremely important, and they tell us a lot about the mystery of consciousness, and the people who are best equipped to work with altered states and use them most effectively for the exploration of the wider reality are indeed shamans in tribal and hunter-gatherer societies. They're the masters of this spiritual technology.
Absolutely. Well, the Kogi use a form of the coca leaf continuously, the shamans do, and they choose the young ones, and then they put them in a dark place for months and months, and they're brought up to be shamans. Yeah. And you've got the New Zealand Maori, and, I mean, there's so many indigenous tribes. In fact, your movie, Earth Pilgrims, takes us on one of those journeys up the Peruvian mountains, I believe it is, on their annual journey.
Exactly.
So these are important, very important cultures and wisdom teachings that we are losing rapidly because society is just mushrooming into these hidden realms and they're wiping them out. And unfortunately, society, the powers that be, have wiped out indigenous cultures throughout time. And we've kind of written it off as, well, they were just after lands or something. But, infected blankets and razor blades to the American Indians wasn't a very nice thing to do.
No, and, horrendous thing to do.
I think that there are reasons why all of these things are going on, and it has to do with what you're talking about, a quantum reality in which our time is intersecting with perhaps many other times, and we're being controlled and pushed and pulled in a very dark direction, so that eventually there will be total control.
Yeah, it's happening at a frightening pace,
frightening pace.
I guess it was my awareness and concerns about these issues that fed into the story I wrote with Entangled. I felt that I was exploring ideas that were so edgy and so extraordinary that the best way to present them was in the form of fiction, rather than in the form of non-fiction. To wrap it all up in a fast-moving story with compelling characters, but at the same time to explore extraordinary ideas about the nature of reality, the nature of time, and the nature of good and evil, and to bring forth truths that it might be impossible to bring forth in the non-fiction format. And there was something else that I need to tell you about this novel, which is that the fundamental plot of the novel and the two principal characters and the battle of good and evil, the demonic force and the angelic force called the Blue Angel, and sometimes Our Lady of the Forest, came to me in a series of visions in Brazil when I was drinking ayahuasca.
Oh my goodness!
Over a series of 5 sessions spread out over 2 weeks, I was shown the whole drama and jeopardy of this story, and I received a very clear instruction at the end of these sessions, which was go home and write this story. Write it now. It's important. It's your responsibility. You've got to do it. And this is what totally changed my direction from non-fiction into fiction and into novel writing. Was this extraordinary revelation under the influence of ayahuasca? And I would say that the Blue Angel in my story is really the mother goddess of our planet, and she is the intelligence, the entity who is pure love and truth that lies behind ayahuasca, who the Native American Indians in the Amazon jungle refer to as Our Lady of the Forest. Every shaman in the Amazon will tell you that there's an intelligence that simply uses the ayahuasca brew as a means to reach humanity. And they all see this as a female intelligence, as a mother goddess who has great love for our planet, for the jungles, for the old-growth forests, and for human freedom, and who has played a role throughout history in trying to influence humanity for the better. One thing that became very clear to me about supernatural realms and supernatural entities, both on the side of darkness and on the side of light, is that they cannot intervene directly in our physical realm. The way that they intervene is through influencing human consciousness. And in this way, we stand, I believe, at the fulcrum of a cosmic struggle between the forces of dark and the forces of light, between the forces of good and the forces of evil. And because that is so, and because we are creatures that are part matter and part spirit, the choices that we make may not only affect us, but may affect the cosmos as a whole in ways that we can hardly imagine. So you know, all of this really became clear to me in a series of visionary experiences. And in some ways, writing this novel, I was gifted with narrative skills, and those narrative skills have been part of my life all my life since I was a child. But my narrative abilities were taken in a wholly new direction by these experiences. It's quite interesting, actually, if you look at the role that ayahuasca is beginning to play. She is coming out of the jungles of the Amazon. Ayahuasca ceremonies, which, by the way, are completely legal throughout South America, there they respect the right of religious freedom, and this is regarded as a religious sacrament and as a medicine. And anyone may drink ayahuasca freely throughout South America. But not only there now, ayahuasca has reached out into North America. Already in 3 states, in Oregon and in California and in New Mexico. There have been Supreme Court rulings which allow members of the Brazilian churches that use ayahuasca. These churches mix shamanism together with some elements of Christianity, and they're called the Santo Daime Church and the Unidade Vegetal. They've actually won the battle already in the United States. And again, I take this as a positive sign that in the U.S. you do have this wonderful thing called a constitution, which we don't have in Britain. And the constitution does guarantee religious freedom. And so although ayahuasca contains a Schedule I so-called drug, I would never refer to it as that. I would always refer to it as a medicine, dimethyltryptamine. Members of these churches have been given an exception and are allowed to drink ayahuasca freely without fear of being raided or sent to prison or having their lives ruined by the state. And in this way, the opportunity to drink ayahuasca is being extended to more and more people around the world. And it's very intriguing. In the Amazon, they'll always tell you that the entity behind ayahuasca is pure love. But sometimes love involves tough love. It involves showing an individual weaknesses and dark sides in their own character and showing it very, very clearly. And this is one of the things that ayahuasca does, and that's why I know that it's a loving entity, because it's happened to me. She's shown me aspects of my own behavior, harsh words that I've spoken to others, little acts of petty cruelty or jealousy that have caused harm and difficulty, and she's shown me this in such a clear and unavoidable light that I've been forced to confront these aspects of myself. And that's where the real work begins, which is changing a lifetime of bad habits and making oneself a better person. And virtually everybody who drinks ayahuasca, sooner or later, has this experience of wishing to improve their behavior in the world and developing a new sense of the importance of the environment, and particularly of the great jungles and rainforests, which are so under threat now. But in addition to that, ayahuasca also gives a creative boost. I know of a couple of geneticists who went down to the Amazon to drink ayahuasca and were given incredible insights into the nature of DNA that helped them directly with their work. There are fantastic visionary artists in the United States. Alex Gray of the Chapel of the Sacred Mirrors in New York State, and Martina Hoffman and Robert Venosa in Boulder, Colorado, who've done extensive work with ayahuasca, and this has totally revolutionized their art, and their art becomes a glimpse into the hidden realm.